Okay, it's time to build my startup. So tired. I think I'll just scroll TikTok a bit and maybe build my startup next week.
Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but that's how some of my days looked like when I was trying to build a startup while working full-time. But the truth is that it's possible. After I implemented 4 core principles into my life, I managed to build 2 startups in 7 and 14 days while working full-time without burning out. And in this video, I'll share exactly how I did it. If you're also building a startup while working full-time, I'm starting a community called Full-Time Founders. It's a place for people who are building at nights and weekends to stay accountable, find a co-founder, grow together, get feedbacks, and build your SaaS to 1K MRR. You can join the waitlist via the link in the description. Back to the video. Alright, the first principle that really helped me is to systemize everything. The hardest part of anything that you're starting out in your life is the beginning. It's hard to go to the gym for the first time. It's hard to approach the stranger on the street for the first time that you like. It feels so hard to get started with it and actually make progress. Because our brains naturally don't want to do things that you've never done before, as it might be dangerous for your body or your mind. And all humans are insanely lazy in things like that. So the easier you're gonna make the process of launching a new startup for yourself, the more startups you will be able to launch and the higher chances to succeed you'll have. So that's why after building my first startup, I decided to document everything that worked and turned everything into templates. Now, whenever I'm launching a new SaaS, I already have a code template, so I don't need to set up a huge project from scratch. I already use a pre-built template, which has payments, authentication, landing page, and many other things that saves me days of initial coding and helps me to build a ready working MVP in just a few days. Secondly, I already have all of the onboarding emails set up. I just tweak and change the copy based on the startup because of course your emails have to be personalized for your specific SaaS. But overall, I have the structure, the emails, the logic, everything is already there. I just tweak the copy. I also have templates for DM messages that I'm sending to promote my SaaS. I have template for ads copy. Of course, once again, ads differ based on the SaaS, but the main copy of like how the hook looks like, how the body, how I film them, everything is templatized. So now whenever I have an idea of a SaaS, it's not feeling that hard to get started with it. It just feels like another routine. Principle number 2, that is specifically super useful for people who are working full-time and trying to build a startup on the side. The biggest issue is of course time, but it's doable to find a few hours every single day for your SaaS. The hardest part is to actually find energy in those hours because your full-time job takes a lot of energy, especially if you had a bunch of meetings or you just had a difficult day on the job, plus you still have to handle your personal life and all of the other things, and finding energy for those 2 or 3 productive hours of deep work on your startup is insanely hard. But I found one trick that actually helped me to feel energized while working on my SaaS every day. The second principle is the principle that Ali Abdaal, one of the biggest productivity YouTubers with over 5 million subscribers, has taught in his productivity book. And this trick is to gamify the process. When you are tired, you don't feel like working, but you feel like playing a computer game or on the PlayStation. So if building your startup feels like playing on the PlayStation, you're actually gonna have some energy to do so. And there are 2 techniques that I'm using to gamify my process. First of all, I'm always having a checklist in Google Docs or Notion where I have the whole list of everything that I need to do with my startup. And I try to be really granular in those checklists or to-do lists. Because if you're gonna set a huge task like launch a startup, that's gonna take a week. So you'll not be able to click this check mark for a week. But if you're gonna break it down into really small pieces like write down the copy for ads or prepare an onboarding email or add 1 extra feature, these are the small steps that can be done in 30 to 60 minutes. And after completing those steps, you'll be able to click this check mark and get this small dose of dopamine of completing a task. And with time, brain gets addicted to that dopamine and you constantly want to do more and more things from your to-do list because it just feels nice to tick all of those checkboxes. So at the beginning of the week, I spent an hour to prepare a good plan and good to-do list for each day for the week. And then every day I just try to go through this to-do list and mark as many things as possible. Second thing that really helps me to gamify the process is to just change my location. Since I'm working on my full-time job at home, if I'm gonna keep working on my startup also at home, it's gonna feel like I'm continuing working and it's gonna feel depressing. That's why after finishing my full-time job, I try to change the location to go to the new coffee shop or my favorite coffee shop and just work from that place. That tricks my brain to feel and think that I'm doing something new, something funny, and something that I really enjoy. Principle number 3 is pretty simple, but a lot of people underestimate it, and it's called working blocks. Studies show that it takes from 15 to 30 minutes to take our brain to the maximum productivity level when you start working on a new task. So it means if you work on one task for less than 30 minutes, you're not even reaching your highest level of productivity and highest level of focus. That's why I never recommend trying to do your startup at the same time of working on your full-time job, because you're just gonna be constantly losing focus and you won't make good progress neither on your job or on your startup. That's why I try to introduce 2 to 3 blocks every single day to work on my startup, and each block should be at least 1 hour long. For example, in the morning, if I wake up at 8 a.m., I don't even check my notifications from the job for 2 hours till 10 a.m. because if I'm gonna check them, my brain gonna start thinking on those tasks and I'll not have enough energy and focus to really focus on my startup. And those 2 hours in the morning when you don't reply on the work messages, don't check them, don't think about them, those are 2 really golden hours when you can make a good progress with your SaaS. And principle number 4 is that weekend is the king. Weekend is pretty much 2 full-time days when you're not getting distracted by your work and which you can dedicate for your startup. So if you're gonna wake up at like 7 a.m., by 3 p.m., you're gonna have 8 productive hours of full focused work on your startup, and you still have the half of the day left for resting, for your personal life, and for just enjoying the weekend. But you already made so much progress. In 8 hours, you can pretty much build like the whole landing page for your startup or the whole marketing strategy. So if your main goal in the life right now is to make progress with your SaaS, I really recommend you to block your weekends, at least the first half of the day of each weekend, for dedicated focused work on your SaaS. Because having 2-3 hours of work every day on working days is really good. It's gonna help you to keep making progress, but those 2 full-time days on the weekends, that's something that's gonna actually make the difference. And that's something that's gonna help you to make more progress in 2 days than in 3 to 4 weeks of your regular weekday 2-hour work sessions. And that's how I went from maybe next week to actually shipping 2 startups in 7 and 14 days from zero, from basically my idea to an actual sale. Implement at least one of those principles and you'll notice a significant progress and improvement in your startup journey. Oh, and before we wrap up, I'm working on something new right now called Full-Time Founders. It's a community for like-minded people who are also building their startups while working full-time on weekends or at nights. We are opening soon, but for now it's waitlist only, and everyone on the waitlist will get early access, special price, and extra bonuses as we launch. You can join the waitlist via the link in the description, and see you in the next video. In this one, for example, where I launched and built a startup in just 14 days. So see you there.